Almost all the YouTubers I watch have a very clear aesthetic, and I want one too. Ever since I was very little, I always liked to dress up, and I think I've sort of brought that with me into my adult life, where I don't really have like a specific aesthetic. I like to play around with aesthetics, and I don't think that's a problem. It just, I don't think I've ever really tried to figure out my aesthetic. And I kind of want to try. So in this video and a few others later on, I'll be testing different aesthetics, and after that I want to try to determine which do I prefer. Obviously there are a lot of aesthetics across the board, so I've sort of just shopped around a bit and chosen some that I want to try. In this video I'll be testing the art ho aesthetic, the dark academia aesthetic, and the cottage core aesthetic. I'll try to do it as accurate as possible. I might get some things wrong. I think all aesthetics look cool on people who can pull it off, and I have a feeling that a lot of these aesthetics are gonna make me feel old. So first off, we have the art ho aesthetic. So I found both the name artsy girl and art ho as names for this aesthetic. I don't think the term art ho is meant to be derogative as far as I could see, so I might use both of them. I found a description of this aesthetic as someone who looks like they're really eager to appear like they're going to art class and art exhibitions and so on, rather than necessarily going. The style, as far as I could find, was characterized by t-shirts with art references, a lot of yellow, especially like sunflower or mustardy yellow, wider jeans like mom jeans, a lot of denim maybe in general. Sunflowers is a big thing. Again, I think this is a Van Gogh. I know it's not pronounced that way, but I'm not sure exactly how it is. But I think it's a reference to his sunflower painting, maybe a crafty feel. You want to seem creative and crafty maybe. And in terms of shoes, Birkenstocks, Doc Martens and so on. When it comes to hair, what I could find was maybe a messy bun. And when it comes to makeup, it seems like it's mostly a natural look, but I found the mention of big, expressive, thick eyebrows and also fake freckles. I don't really have freckles, so I'll try that, and also I'll be attempting to make my eyebrows thicker because they are quite sparse. So for this look, I am going to go with a pair of Birkenstocks, these jeans that have a sunflower on them. They don't have a sunflower on them. I embroidered this sunflower the last few days just to try to make it accurate, so that's on there. I have this sort of sunflower yellow sweater. I also have these paintbrushes that I think I'm gonna try to style my hair with. This backpack, it's from the brand that was mentioned several times when looking up this aesthetic. It's not the exact type or style within this brand, but it's close enough. Now for this part I actually forgot to plug in my microphone, but I am just putting on the makeup for this first look. I'm not a beauty YouTuber, so I don't really have the setup or the competence to teach you guys about makeup. So I'm just putting on some concealer and some foundation. And then I'm just using a bit of bronzer to look a bit more sun-kissed and putting on my fake freckles with an eyeliner pencil. And then I'm trying to make my eyebrows a bit thicker. This is not very easy because they're so sparse to begin with, but I think we made it work okay, even though they look a bit too painted. And then I'm just going on with a very natural eye makeup. For the messy bun, I used a tutorial from a YouTuber called Elise Louise, and Elise Louise, you have changed my life. I've never managed to do a good messy bun, and I cannot say that this one was a complete success either. There is room for improvement here. But for the first time in my life, I was actually able to make a messy bun that looked decent, and I feel like it's all thanks to Elise Louise. And I was genuinely surprised and almost shocked that it turned out okay. So I'm very pleasantly surprised by this. So this is my rendition or interpretation of the art hoe look. I added this scarf as a belt just because I felt like it made me look a bit alternative and artsy. So here are the Birkenstocks. I also have this backpack. It sort of works. And I don't have any of my old art books, but I have these historic costume books. So if you guys have any feedback on my interpretation of this style, please let me know. I do not think I have like nailed it, but I feel like I've done an okay attempt and I like it. I like the messy bun. That's sort of revolutionized my life because I've tried that so many times. I'm not a big fan of like painting on freckles. I just feel a bit weird about that. I wish I had voluminous eyebrows. I feel like these, you can tell that I've really painted them on. According to the New York Times, dark academia is a subculture where there is a lot of focus on reading, writing, learning in general, and it is an aesthetic that sort of combines traditional academic fashion with like a gothic feel to it. This aesthetic is characterized by like dark tweed, plaid patterns maybe in general, sweater vests, colored shirts and sweaters. And in terms of color, a lot of brown, black, gray, muted colors. When it comes to footwear, I saw mentioning of Oxford shoes, Mary Jane's, Doc Martens here as well. According to CNN, a lot of fans of this aesthetic are inspired by movies like Dead Poets Society. It's sort of like a romanticization of learning. So the makeup for this aesthetic, as far as I could find, it's quite muted in combination with a muted red lip, maybe. Now for this style, I will be wearing these plaid tights, this knee-high wool skirt, this turtleneck sweater, these brown leather boots, this wool jacket, leather bag, and to complement the outfit, this worn old book. I'm just going to try to add a bit of red lipstick. I feel like that's kind of more pink than red. I'm gonna give this an attempt and I'm gonna try to change my hair a bit. So cottage core, again, is a romanticization of, in this case, the rural life and the countryside. Simple life with natural materials and earthy colors and patterns. So it sort of combines the rural aesthetic with a fairy tale-esque aesthetic. So think about like a fairy tale cottage in the woods and what you would naturally wear in that type of environment. So it has a lot of like practical and at the same time romantic garments, flowy, ruffled aesthetic, but combined with practical garments that you can use to pick flowers or do gardening. So there's a lot of flowy skirts, puff sleeves, smock details, ruffles and so on, floral patterns, leafy patterns, and natural materials and colors. I have this corset, I think it's called a Cottage Core corset. So it's a dress, but I will be wearing it as sort of a top because I'm going to have a skirt over this. I have this light blue skirt with buttons up the front that has practical pockets that I feel fits this aesthetic. And finally, I have the straw hat, and I will just tie a ribbon around it, I think. This isn't really the type of hat that usually goes with this aesthetic, I think. I think it's usually more the wider brim and a rounder top, ideally. But we work with what we have. I think it's very cute and it is quite practical. I like the cottage core style corsets. I think overall it may be a bit too cutesy for me, especially with the puff sleeves and everything. I think maybe that's where it kind of loses me a bit. And of course, maybe if I had a more cohesive style here. Now, editor Heidi also wants to comment on the color scheme because I chose a very cotton candy color scheme here, which is not necessarily what the style entails. So I think if I'd chosen more natural colors, maybe a bit more in the brown and beige and that kind of territory, I would have had a different impression of this style. So that's it for now. I hope you guys like this video. If you have any comments on which aesthetic you think is more fitting or that you prefer, please let me know. For the next video, I'll be testing out the 90s grunge aesthetic, the visco girl aesthetic, and the boho aesthetic. So stay tuned for that, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.